Well, when Chris goes up into the attic, it's because she hears these strange and disturbing noises. She thinks it's rats, but when she gets up in the attic, she sees that there are traps that have been set, but there were no rats up there. The rats never went for the bait. So what are these strange noises or rappings, as Blatty refers to them in the novel and in the screenplay? Clearly, it's the manifestation of the demon. And it is meant as an early indication that the demonic spirit resides not only in Regan, but in this house. An older house does seem to have, more history and therefore more potential for either good vibrations or bad vibrations. That's a general notion. The fact is that nothing is meant to suggest that there is anything inherently evil in the house itself. There's nothing inherently evil in little Regan or in her mother. The idea is that the devil chooses his victims at random in order to influence some of the rest of us. If you read the novel for the first time, you sort of become suspicious of Carl early on. That Carl has done something to perhaps summon up the demon. It's suggested later that Carl is the one who put the crucifix, the metal crucifix, under Regan's bed. Carl is a much more important figure in the novel than he is in the film. And there is the suggestion throughout the novel, early on, that perhaps Carl might have been involved with certain mysterious Teutonic practices that brought about the existence of the demon. I didn't do much with that in the film.
Christ, Carl,
So in that sense, it is a red herring, but I didn't want to eliminate Carl from the story.
No rats. Thanks a lot. That's terrific.
I don't think that anyone could really go inside a chapel like that and have the time and take the trouble to desecrate a statue in that way. This is a peculiarity, I believe, of the evil that exists out there, and that all evil is in some way related. If you look closely at the statue, you see that the fake breasts and the fake penis are made of clay, the same clay that Regan has used to make her little toys. So there is the suggestion that this was done by Regan, but she is by no means in the story or in the film in an advanced enough state to have done this.
The edema affected her brain. You understand me? She don't let no doctor come near her. She was all the time screaming, even talking to the radio.
You should have called me the minute it happened.
Listen,
when you go out to film an actual sequence involving real people, you really don't know what they're going to do. You haven't staged it. You're just trying to follow the action like grabbing a tiger by the tail. I was able to induce the documentary style. And to a large extent, I was able to do that by using real people in a lot of these cases. So there is a sense that you're watching real human behavior throughout this film and not simply a performance. This sequence was filmed in Bellevue Hospital in a ward for the mentally ill. And a few of the women are actresses, but the majority of them are not. They are actually patients in the hospital who we got to participate with us and perform pretty much as themselves. I mean, I basically just let them do what they were doing in that hospital room on a daily basis. There's no suggestion that Karis's mother is mentally ill, but she's in a mental ward. And you see him becoming very upset when he's surrounded by the patients in this mental ward, one of whom steals his priest's collar. And this scene is all to add to his frustration for having neglected his own mother, which is one of the weaknesses that the demon plays upon later during the exorcism.
Mama, it's Demi, Mama.
A lot of things in the early section of the film prefigure things that turn up in later sections of the film. The fact that Karras's mother is strapped into a hospital bed does prefigure his initial meetings with Reagan when she too is strapped into her own bed. Karras, on seeing his mother in this condition, his guilt becomes much more profound and pronounced, and he realizes that by not being there for his mother, he has let her down, and what good is it for a priest to minister to the world if he can't take care of his own family? The people at the party are largely people that we brought in from Georgetown, who were members of Georgetown society that could afford to come up and work for a day. So I wanted a kind of an authentic look, which is very hard to get with screen extras. This is the famous shot right here that is referred to in the Anita Hill Clarence Thomas case. Burke Denning says there seems to be an alien pubic hair in my gin, and that line became famous. It was actually read out of the novel by Senator Orrin Hatch at the Senate Clarence Thomas hearing. He opened up a copy of Blatty's novel and read that line from the book as a source for where Thomas might have said it to Anita Hill.
Was it public relations you did for the Gestapo office?
Community relations.
I'm Swiss.
Yes, of course. And you never went bowling with Goebbels either, I suppose, eh? Nazi bastard.
Over behind the church. You know where I mean? Over there, it's a red brick.
In the course of the party, Chris learns that Father Karras has lost his mother, but we also learn that Chris has noticed Father Karras. She's seen him in the street, and something about him struck her enough to ask Father Dyer, who's at this party, who is that priest that she saw behind St. Michael's Parish. So that again prefigures that Chris has noticed Karras, and later she will become involved in a symbiotic way with Karras.
Butchering Nazi pig.
Burke Dennings, the director in the film within the film, who's played by Jack McGowran, who was one of the greatest actors on the Irish stage. He had made very few films, but he was an actor that Samuel Beckett used to write a lot of his plays for. Burke Dennings was modeled after the film director named J. Lee Thompson. And J. Lee Thompson directed a film with Shirley MacLaine that Bill Blatty happened to write the screenplay for. And so he modeled the character of Burke after J. Lee Thompson. And I originally offered the role to J. Lee Thompson himself. And he said he would do it, but then he either got too busy with the project he was going to direct, or he probably didn't see himself in quite the way that Blatty saw him, as a satirical figure. I was very influenced at that time by the films of Michelangelo Antonioni, the great Italian director, and the way Antonioni would tell a story almost laterally, in the sense that he would never usually repeat shots. It's very common to repeat shots in almost any film. You have a close-up of one person, a close-up of another person in the scene, a profile of both of them. And these shots are repeated in a very predictable pattern throughout the course of a scene and throughout the course of a movie. What Antonioni was able to do was almost never repeat a shot. He would sometimes play an entire scene in one shot. And even within a scene, you would seldom have that the repetitious rhythm of one close-up, another close-up, in a way that had become, I felt, even at that time, much more so today, highly predictable. This particular scene is really there as the kind of first shocking manifestation of something in Reagan's nature that would not normally be there. The only thing that precedes this, as unusual, are the kind of rappings that you hear, the rappings in the ceiling. what Chris refers to as rats in the attic, which are considerably more than rats, as we will later find out.
Mother, what's wrong with me?
It's just like the doctor said. It's nerves, and that's all. Okay? You just take your pills and you'll be fine, really. Okay?
I always tried to build in an extremely quiet scene before an extremely loud scene. In fact, there is a constant motif running through the film on a technical level of light and dark, loud and soft, good and evil. So all of the scenes that have some kind of demonic force to them, like the shaking of the bed, all of those scenes are preceded by very quiet scenes to set up the contrast. When these particular demonic scenes hit, they're extremely loud and percussive and violent. The actor who plays Father Dyer is not really an actor. He's, again, a priest. He's Reverend William O'Malley, S.J., and he, too, teaches at Fordham University. He was an acquaintance of Bill Blatty's, and Bill introduced me to Father O'Malley and told me that when he met O'Malley, he had already written Father Dyer, but it seemed to him that O'Malley was an almost perfect example of Father Dyer. O'Malley was a model for Father Dyer while not having served as a model. And they became friends. I guess Bill met O'Malley through Father Birmingham, and they became friends. And Bill told me when I was casting the film that there's a guy who is Dyer, even though he wasn't actually the model for Dyer. I met O'Malley in New York with Bill. We had dinner one night, and I agreed with him that he was Dyer, and he had a great personality. And so I auditioned him. I had him read for me. And I thought he was perfect. Again, you know, he has the soul of this character that he's playing. I made up the dream sequence in the editing room out of a lot of found objects, in addition to the repetition of some shots that you had already seen. I was trying to show how the symbiosis can occur between two different people whose lives are inextricably tied together in ways that are not clear to them as yet. It occurred to me to examine what are dreams made of in a symbiotic situation. So moments from Karras's dream about his mother's death and images of the demon mixed together with images that we saw in Iraq sort of tie together the two disparate worlds of Karras and Merrin in ways that are going to indicate that they later come together, that they're united in this exorcism. There was never any question of trying to brainwash an audience by the use of this imagery. I felt that it had the irregular and unpredictable pace of a dream. But I am aware of what can happen when you're looking at 2 and 3 frame cuts of something. It does, in a way, become sort of unsettling, but more importantly, it causes the audience to pay attention more. So that's why those short cuts are in there, even though I've read over the years that they were put there to, if anything, brainwash the audience, which is ludicrous.
Well, it's a symptom of a type of disturbance in the chemical electrical activity of the brain. In the case of your daughter, in the temporal lobe. It's up here in the lateral part of the brain. It's rare, but it does cause bizarre hallucinations, and usually just before a convulsion.
A convulsion?
The shaking of the bed. That's doubtless due to muscular spasms.
Oh, no, that was no spasm. Look, I got on the bed. The whole bed was thumping and rising off the floor and shaking, the whole thing, with me on it.
Mrs. McNeil, the problem with your daughter is not her bed. It's her brain.